Am I pronouncing that name correctly? Reinkemeyer?
Pretty close. Closer than most. Reinkemeyer.
Reinkemeyer.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for that. All right, Mr. Reinkemeyer, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you are about to give is true and accurate?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and spell your name for the record.
Jeffrey J. Reinkemeyer, Jeffrey, and then Reinkemeyer is Reinkemeyer.
Thank you. Would you please state for whom you are employed and provide the address?
Yeah. Avangrid Renewables, LLC. Our renewables corporate address is 2701 Northwest Vaughn Street in Portland, Oregon.
Thank you. And you are here on behalf of a wind farm in Crawford County, correct?
That is correct. We own the New Harvest Wind Farm in Crawford County.
Has the wind farm been constructed?
Yes.
Would you please describe the concerns you have as it relates to Summit Carbon's proposed hazardous liquid pipeline and your wind farm?
Yeah, when we commonly work with other entities such as pipeline companies, distribution electrical companies, and the state DOT, county roads, to obtain what we call crossing consents, which basically allows for coordination of the installation within an existing asset. When we do this, we reach out, talk to the counterparties, kind of coordinate the installation to minimize impacts on their operation. We do the same when other companies approach us. We work with them to mitigate any concerns we have with the viability and operation of our asset, both during and after construction. In this case, we were approached in January of this year with an email. Our asset manager tried reaching back out, asking for mapping and consent agreement drafts. We were given a map that really wasn't legible, and that was about it. We were never presented with a consent agreement. The next outreach we had on this was the notice for this hearing, and so at that point, we knew that we needed to respond formally because we hadn't been able to have an informal discussion on coordination. So we responded with our letter and led me to testify here today. We still remain hopeful and prepared to work on a consent agreement and coordination of the proposed pipeline from around our assets. Our main intent here is to protect our asset.
And can you share the concerns of that asset as it pertains to the pipeline?
Yes, as an operating wind farm, we have 50 turbines, and I have to count how many are within this map. But we want to make sure that the pipeline is a prescribed distance away from our turbines. Which is basically how we'll do when we install a new turbine. We make sure it's an appropriate distance away from the pipeline. Also, we will have access roads going to our turbines and underground electrical lines, extending out from the turbines to transmit the electricity to a substation. We would like to make sure that those lines are not damaged, not breached. We'd like to maintain access to our turbine on our access road throughout the project. So that would be specifically to this wind farm what we'd be looking for.
Okay, thank you. I understand you have hearing exhibits?
Yes, it would be Exhibit C, or is it? Yeah, I think it's Exhibit 3. So that would show those.
We're working on it.
Okay. Oh, well, okay. It would be, yeah, there you go. There you go. Okay, so yeah, this shows our wind farm in the area where the pipeline is. The green line is actually the location that since I forgot to say subsequent to us responding, we did start getting information from the proponent here, and so we've actually taken their information and superimposed it on a map that we have showing our wind turbines in this area. So that green line is their proposed pipeline. You see the kind of pink hash area here. That's our what we would call the setback requirement that we would adhere to. If we were coming in with a wind turbine and trying to install within an existing pipeline. And then also you can see the red dash lines are underground electrical lines. So you see that in 3 different locations, where the line crosses. And then the yellow line here, the yellow is an access road. So you see in one place where this crosses. So there's a couple of concerns here. One is the access road crossing and 3 electrical line crossings. The other is this location. We would not have put our turbine there if the line was there first. We would have had to back it up. The line is actually too close to our turbine. Here, that's turbine F4. Showing the map.
And other exhibits you want to discuss?
That's really the main one that we have. Again, we put this together, and our interest is protecting our assets and working with the company, in order to come up with an agreement that will address our concerns in these areas.
Okay, thank you. Do you move to have the exhibits admitted?
Yes.
Is there an objection from any of the parties? Seeing no objection, the objections will be admitted as the exhibits, all 5 will be admitted as avant-garde hearing exhibits 1 through 5. All right. Are there any questions from the parties? I'm not sure. I haven't put the name to the face yet. So, Will Reasoner, I'm an attorney for Avangard Renewables. Okay. Thank you. I've not intervened. I'm not a party. Do I have permission to ask questions here? Limited. Understood. Could the board, right where the hand is at on Exhibit 3, where it was before you moved it, could you zoom in right down there? The witness is pointing. And zoom in maybe one more time. Maybe want to move it down a little bit more. You want to get to this. This is what I want to see. I just want to clarify for the record. There's a turbine, I think it says F3. During your testimony, I believe you said that F4
I misspoke. It's actually F3. Sorry about that.
And when we're looking at this exhibit where we see the triangles, and then there's F2, F3, does that represent the location of where turbines are at?
That is correct.
What would you, in the event that you do not reach a voluntary agreement with Summit, what protections would you ask from this board relative to your assets? Let's start with protections relative to the turbines themselves.
I would ask that our setback requirements for pipeline distances from our turbines, be adhered to.
What's the purpose of that setback? Is it safety?
Yeah, it's safety setback. If there's some type of malfunction on a turbine, we're just trying to we want to keep the pipeline a distance away to ensure that we don't do any damage to it.
Okay. What protections would you ask from the board relative to the red dashes, the underground connection lines?
Yeah, our interest would be that we don't shut down the wind farm at all during this. So what we would request is, instead of trenching through these areas and repairing the lines, that in each one of these locations, the pipeline company do a jack bore, underneath these lines to make sure that gets done while we can continue to operate.
And I understand that you've recently begun discussions with Summit. So at this time, do you have an exact depth that you would like that jack bore to occur, or is it generally a certain amount under your existing lines?
We've got details that we would share with them during the negotiations, but there is a clearance. And I do want to correct one thing I just said. To be clear, while the actual jack bore work is going on itself, we would not be operating that line. We would have that line de-energized while that's going on. It's just that we don't want to have to go back and splice wire and do a bunch of do a bunch of repair.
Could the board keep the same zoom but then go up on the image? Up a little bit more until we see a crossing road. Thank you. Now on the image, in between C1 and C2, there's a yellow line. Is that an access road?
That is correct.
And then is there also an underground collector line right around that same area?
Yes, that's correct. It would be adjacent to the road.
Would you ask for the jack boring underneath both the access road and the underground connector line?
Yes, for the same reasons as below on the electrical line, and then also for the reasons of maintaining our access to that turbine, while the work is going on.
I have no more specific questions, board. Thank you for the grace to ask these clarification questions. Thank you. Ms. Ryan.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Anna Ryan, and I represent Carrie Hirth in this proceeding. She's the daughter of a landowner. I basically just have some questions about how you found out that your asset would be impacted.
Well, as I mentioned, we did get an email in January 2023 with a rough map. We weren't aware of the urgency of the plan until we got the notice.
And when did you get that notice?
As around the 14th of August, somewhere in there.
And did that notice come from Summit or from the Utilities Board?
I think it came from the Utilities Board.
Do you feel like you had adequate time to prepare for this?
We've been busy, but it was a little tight. But yes, we were prepared.
And you had an attorney. I assume your attorney represents you in other matters.
Yes.
Okay. Is he an in-house attorney?
No, he works for Dickinson. I forget. So, but yeah, he is not an inside counsel.
Okay. But you did have a pre-existing relationship.
Yes.
And you said you've been in conversations with Summit. When did those conversations begin?
Well, after the notice and our response, we have been in communication with them. They have presented us with a draft consent agreement that we're reviewing. They provided us the mapping that we've utilized to try and hone in on the concerns we were going to have, with the project.
If you had more information earlier, do you feel like you would have been able to come to an agreement with Summit before now?
In our past, we negotiate with companies and typically we'll come to an equitable solution to the issue.
What kind of time, if companies are looking at things like this just in general, what kind of time frame generally do those negotiations take? Like a couple of months?
It'll depend. It depends on who the counterparty is and what our concerns are. I've seen them, go from a month to several months.
Okay. Thank you. That's all my questions.
Thank you. So follow-up questions are very limited to just clarifications. So go ahead.
This is just a record clarification from the witness's perspective. This is my first time representing Avangrid Renewables. So from the connections that got us here probably looks like from the client perspective that there's been an ongoing relationship, but the Dickinson law firm's we were retained after August 14th. I just wanted that clear for the record.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay. Seeing no more questions, the board has one more question. Can you provide us the exact or some specifics on the setback that you would request?
Yeah, typically we ask for what's called the turbine tip height elevation, as our setback. In this case, it's just under 400 feet is the tip height of these turbines. So we'd say, just for rough numbers, say 400 feet. By our measurement of the line, again, this is measuring this line off of what we were provided. It would look like it would need to move approximately 160 feet to the east, to comply with that setback.
Okay.
Again, we would need to hone in on that and come up with more. But that's our initial view of it.
So it's just the line on the east that's of concern as represented by this exhibit.
Well, it's the green line. The green line, where, again, we need to extend down where the turbine is. When you, in that area where F3 is, would be where we would be most concerned. However, I would leave it to the pipeline to determine how they would accomplish that. But yeah, in that area, we would need to be about 160 feet further to the east. The green line would need to be.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. I don't believe there are any further questions. You are excused. Thank you.